Nana Opoku Agyemang. She's now I address her as the 2020 running mate of the National Democratic Congress, the largest opposition. The last time you were here, but I hope you're well.
Oh yes, I'm well. I have a cold, but that's okay.
It comes with the season. Everyone here has some.
Yeah, it's very dry and everybody's coughing or sniffing.
Yes. The last time you were here, I was addressing you as a former minister for education, and I recall vividly when you were here, one of the questions that came when I was reading through messages was a question about whether you were in the running to be running mate of the NDC in 2020. At the time, you were a member of the manifesto committee.
Yes, we were very busy.
Yes. And I recall what you said then. You said that you have a duty, you have been assigned a duty to perform, and that you are performing that.
Yes.
And then you talk about the fact that you assist the party in any capacity that they assigned you to. Yes. At the time, did you know you were going to be?
No, far from it. Working on the manifesto was quite an interesting but also an intensive activity, and we all needed to focus on that.
Okay.
And there'll be many roles many people play at any given time in a big party such as the National Democratic Congress. So for me, the important thing is to focus on what you are doing at the time and do it as well as you can. Yeah.
So you were taking the roles as and when they came, because it followed with, I think you were announced as a member of the campaign team too.
No.
You stayed with the manifesto committee.
No, I wasn't a member of whose campaign team?
The NDC campaign team.
No, I had my own campaign team.
Oh no! Before you were.
But there were no.
There was no campaign.
Well, I'm not aware that there was a campaign team at the time that we were working on the manifesto.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I thought you were subsequently announced when the campaign team was put together. You were one of them. Before then, you were announced as running mate. Anyway, but I also want to find out. Has anything changed ever since then? Because when you came there, that time, you came alone. You didn't have to have a security team among others. What has changed?
Well, so many things have changed because the manifesto has been over. Even the campaign is over.
Yeah.
So during the campaign, because of all the visits, the activities, and so on, you needed many more people with you.
Okay.
So actually, let me take this opportunity to thank my campaign team. They did very well. My campaign was led by Honorable Alex Segwefia. They did a fantastic job. So many people, many people volunteered. They were just happy to be part of what was going on. And I'm very, very grateful. The security people, the drivers, the people in the streets, those who cheered, those who encouraged, those who supported. It was quite an exciting time and a challenging one too, as such. It was challenging in the sense that people have very high hopes. You are coming, you're a woman, we expect you to do things differently. So the expectations were high. So one of the things I tried to do on the trail was to listen a bit more. What exactly is your expectation? You remember the way we did our manifesto? His Excellency John Dramani Mahama himself went on the speaker tour. So, and that was very helpful. Hearing from ordinary people, not necessarily party people, what the expectations were. And our methodology for the manifesto followed suit. Inviting, visiting first of all, then the the virus came, and so we couldn't meet large numbers of people. So we invited memoranda, and they just came in the buckets.
Yeah, I heard you had a lot.
A whole lot, so sorting them out, arranging them in order, finding what the LCDs were, and so on and so forth. It was tedious, it was exciting, I think it was satisfying to know exactly what people want, because you see, the manifesto is not made for the people on the committee. If that were the case, you can just put 10, 12, maybe 20 people in a room and give them a month, and I'm sure they can whip up a nice manifesto for you. But it's not for them, it's for the people, it's for all of us. So what do we want? We take them sector by sector. What are our expectations? And more importantly for us was a question of, what do you think you can do to make this happen? Okay. Because we wanted to build a partnership right from the beginning, so that in the end we own the manifesto. That is why we called it the People's Manifesto. It's for all of us in partnership to move the nation in the direction we think it should be going.
Yeah. I also heard, I think I heard the chairman of the committee, the manifesto committee, said that whilst you were announced as running mate, you're doing your work as running mate, you were still...
Yeah, because you see, yes, I was still a member of the manifesto committee because our work wasn't done.
Okay.
Okay, then I was announced as a running mate, and I was in charge of the human development chapter.
That's an important...
And it's a very big education, health, youth, all of that. So you couldn't just abandon, to what end will you do that? You have to see this through.
Okay.
We have to get to a very decent draft where we know that it's just editing, minor things. So much as, yes, you are busy, doesn't mean you should abandon this. And on what basis are you going to campaign?
Okay.
So yes, I attended the meetings, I played my role, but many, many, many people also played their roles. It wasn't a one-person, manifesto committee.
Yeah.
Many, many of us. And so we all had to pull.
But that must have been difficult. Required a lot more work, a lot more time, because you're having to be running mate in the thick of the election, and then having to work on the manifesto at the same time.
Yeah, sometimes it happens, as I keep telling young ladies or young people generally, the day will be 24 hours. It won't get longer for you because you think you are so busy, you're a mother or you're a wife or you're a worker, or let's take the woman parliamentarian, coming to Accra for parliamentary duties. You left your home, maybe your children, maybe they're younger, your family. Now you have to manage your responsibility with your executives, and then with the party headquarters, and then with parliament. It's still 24 hours. So you need to learn to plan, and you need to learn to think ahead, focus, prioritize very, very well in such a way that one area doesn't suffer. You make some mistakes too, but you learn as you go along.
Well, I'm speaking to Prof for the first time since you became running mate, so that's how come I still feel like I need to ask a few questions. But I was always wondering, because I realized you have quite a professional security team. And I'm wondering how they manage. I know Prof is one of those who like to engage and listen to everybody. How they manage to maintain that aspect of security. And I hope they were not complaining a lot about your approach.
I think, so you have a new team, you need to sit down with them and have a certain dialogue about who you are, how you want things done. And at the same time, also listen to them. Okay. They are the ones in charge of security. Listen, there are two things I don't argue against. One is health, the other is security. I'll not go and argue against my doctor if he says do this and you say no, my style is to do it that way. Do you want to get better or you don't? That's the bottom line.
So you listen to them a lot.
You have to listen to them, and they have to listen to you. Then you have a good relationship going forward. They will tell you why they're doing certain things. Once you understand, you will tolerate. Okay? Maybe there are ways in which you can amend this method a bit. Fine, but not to the extent of compromising your safety. If you're not safe, then what's the point? So you have to have a good relationship with them. You have to learn from them, just as they may learn something from you. Because the overall aim is to have a successful event with no, I don't want to say casualty, but without unnecessary disruptions. If I may put it that way. So.
Well, one of the things I also noticed during the election campaign was that your response to, there was a new chant that came up. People were shouting, "Mami Odende."
That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. And I'll say too. That was a lot of fun, yeah. But then you see, apart from the fun, there's also expectation. Okay, built in that mami odende is expectation.
Okay.
Now you have arrived. What are you doing for us? So yes, on the stage we'll all dance and say a two and laugh, but in your quiet moment, you know that this is not exactly a joke.
Because they're calling you a mother.
They're calling and they want to get something from you.
Okay.
You need to know what it is, how you can deliver it if you can, how you can work with them to deliver it. So for me, it wasn't just the call.
Okay.
I looked at the underlying issue of the call. Yeah.
And
Because they've never seen a woman in that position before.
Yeah.
Now, what are the expectations? What do they think you can do differently? And how do they think you can effect that? For example, we can even talk about the concept of power. Concept of power. So you're in a powerful position.
Yeah.
How do you exercise that power?
Okay.
How have others exercised the power? How are you going to negotiate your way around power? How have males exercised power that you have accepted? And we think that's okay. But when a woman enters the arena and exercises power to the same level, how will that society look at it? Okay. So you see, it's not so simple. And there are many things you need to reflect on, or at least I needed to reflect on, and to ensure that you are still getting your work done without necessarily being antagonistic.
So you understood the fact that you're going to be a first, and that the way you treated this will define how things look going forward for anybody who steps in that position.
You see, this is where it becomes a huge challenge for women. Okay, let me say that, let me go back a bit. Let me move away from this. So I'm appointed Vice Chancellor.
Okay.
I'm the first woman Vice Chancellor. There have been many Vice Chancellors before, but not a woman.
Okay.
And if the previous Vice Chancellors did well or didn't do well, we never said they did well or didn't do well because they were males.
Okay.
Do you get it?
Yes.
But then there's extra pressure on you as a woman who's been appointed Vice Chancellor. If you didn't do well, I could sense that even from the tail end of your question. If you didn't do well, then the danger is that, now women cannot be Vice Chancellors. Totally wrong, totally unacceptable, but it is part of the perception. And you need to take that perception seriously.
Okay.
So at any given, or even in your place here, maybe you've never had a woman manager, you get a woman manager. The previous manager, who was male, was strict and firm, and the place was running well. The woman steps in and does the same thing. You tell me how.
The reaction.
I don't want to put you on the spot. I'd have asked you how would you have reacted. But I think you know what I'm talking about. So sometimes you also have to be conscious of them. But at the same time, just do your work and do it well. And let future judge you.
Because I was wondering how you felt about the comparisons. Because I thought for a moment, you're talking about a professor. Take away the fact that the person is a woman. And then the comparisons was can this woman handle the... people were even saying, can she handle the economic management team? Can she do that? I said, but the person who is there currently has a doctorate. You are a professor. We're even talking about qualification. Why? How did you feel about those kind of attempts to downplay your...
I just felt that I shouldn't fall for them.
Okay.
So yes, you'll be... Listen, we've had vice presidents who were not economists. Were those people making bad comments about them? Were they saying they did well or not because they weren't economists? And I remember at one interview, somebody asked that question. And I said that, but as vice president, you also chair the police council. And I asked, so do I have to be a forensic auditor or, do I have to be a security expert? So it isn't about that. Okay. If the previous one, or the current one rather, is an economist, so be it. Okay. We've had non-economists, and the country has not collapsed. Now we have an economist, which is fine.
And I think your boss was one of them.
Precisely. I didn't even want to go into details. My boss was one of them. He wasn't an economist. Look at the state of the economy then. So I think that some of those comparisons were totally unhelpful, and it's like, so can she also go on the stage and wax slogans. I mean, really, where is that taking us? When you're given a job, you look at the description. You can't do it by yourself, okay? Even if in your own area of expertise, you cannot do it by yourself. Okay. There are many, many other experts in the field, and you can call on them. Okay. We have many. You see, I keep saying that this country doesn't lack expertise. It doesn't lack the needed qualifications, the needed goodwill, the needed hard work, the needed focus to move our country forward. We don't lack them. They're all over the place. So so I'm at the university and I'm chairing the development committee. I'm not a development expert, okay, but you see the results. And I think that sometimes it's even helpful because then you ask the ordinary questions, the questions that the ordinary person will ask. Yeah. And then the team will have to break things down for you to understand in such a way that they are also understood by everybody else. If you are going to talk, humility, if it's all about jargons, then it's like you are addressing a very tiny audience, okay, which is also good, but it has to break out of that audience to reach all of us. So, and I never compared myself with anyone that, because he's an economist, I must also go and learn. No, I'm not an economist, but we'll have enough economists. We'll have enough of them to help steer affairs. And you've already given the example of my boss. Yeah.
And your boss and yourself, you seem to have quite a very close relationship. Sometimes you can see somebody is nominated as running mate, and there's not that immediate connection between the running mate and the flag bearer.
Oh, is that
but the two of you are as if you knew each other for so long. Did you have a friendship with him before?
No, I didn't have a friendship, but I had a working relationship. Remember, okay, I was coming from the ministry.
Yeah.
And we were doing so many things at the ministry at the time. And I liked the way he gave us the space. Okay, maybe talking about myself. The space to lead what the manifesto was saying about education. And I also liked the way he would listen. For example, he wanted to build 200 schools. And I was telling myself, 200 schools, what should they look like? Are they going to look like the general run of day schools that the children don't like? Okay? Or should they look different? And also, number two, what were the then issues in secondary education? And secondary education is junior secondary and senior secondary. Secondary education is not 3 years in this country, it's 6 years. So you need, it's junior, senior secondary school, isn't it? Or junior high school. We didn't say junior primary school.
Junior high school and senior
high school. So we needed to factor many things. So we had to have a back and forth structure. It couldn't just be senior because they are moving from one level to that. And from this senior, they're also moving on. So it's like a train running. Okay, so reconceptualizing all of that was useful for us. And he listened. And he understood why maybe the original thought had to be tweaked a little bit. Because we had then and we still have serious issues at the secondary level. So if you're going to build new ones, how are you going to ensure that the existing problems are minimized, if not completely eliminated? Otherwise, you're going to build more schools. The problems are going to be compounded, and the results may not be as good as you wanted them. So I like the way he would always listen. And also, having worked with him in cabinet, I saw somebody with a good heart who meant well for the country and who was very, very concerned about the vulnerable. And I think that also resounded with my own way. I feel we should be interested in them. You are the university. There are students who can hardly afford anything. So what should you do? Some would even use their student loan to support the younger siblings. And so some, I've been hall warden, head of department, dean. I've seen a lot at that level. So if now you're in the ministry and the university is one section under you, apart from primary and secondary and technical and polytechnic and so on, you need to bring this expertise to bear.
Okay.
And I like the way he will listen, he'll agree or disagree. And so we built a good relationship. Let me say that. We had a very good working relationship.
Okay.
And I think that helped us, even when we got closer.
Okay.
And I find him an easy person to relate with.
Okay.
And a good listener. And somebody who doesn't mind saying, oh, I didn't think about it this way. I think let's consider it that way. So he's never like, I know it all, and you stand back. No, I don't have that impression of him. So I think we bonded quite well.
It was clear. So it was easy to work with him.
Oh, yeah. Very, very easy.
Well, Prof, now that I have gotten to the election, I want to ask you, because it's 1 year after the 2020 elections.
Yes.
It will take more than 2 programs to go to what happened through the elections. But when it was December 7th, 2021, exactly a year after the elections, and people were reminded, perhaps you were reminded, that it's 1 year after the elections were held. What was it? What were the thoughts on your mind?
Maybe you don't even need to wait for a whole year to do introspection.
Okay.
So as a year, it was a very busy year. This has been a very busy year.
Even 2021?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Because we had the court to deal with.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was at the court from beginning to end. I wanted to learn something. And, so I was there all the time. And then more than that, my boss couldn't come to court every day. Okay. So we had to represent him. So we had that to deal with, going back and forth, preparation after review, so many things. And then after that, doing the national retreat, followed by the regional retreat, then the thank you tour. So we've been very, very busy. We've been extremely busy, ending up in 1 year after. So, we didn't go on a vacation for a year. And then you say, oh, tomorrow is a year. What do we do? No. It has been, and I think it's been quite fulfilling. Okay. And a huge and good learning experience, at least for myself.
Okay. But what about the elections stuck with you? The 2020 elections?
Yes.
Something about the elections that you would never forget and would always, because these elections, the EC chairperson describes it as the best elections we've ever organized. But there are those who always point out to her that was the first time people were killed in our elections. It was the first time in our elections when a section of Ghana does not have representation. That it was, look at the number of even election petitions that are yet unresolved in Parliament alone. And even the presidential elections that you were a part of, we are still not clear in our minds as to how did our president win the election. Because the numbers, we are still looking at the numbers and still wondering, so on what basis was the declaration made among others?
Well, I think that she could have made things very easy for herself if she had mounted that box and explained. Then all these lingering questions may have been put to sleep. Okay. But that was her choice. And I also don't know the mechanism she's using to evaluate herself or to evaluate the job that her commission did. Ghana, we had become, in terms of elections and results and so on, maybe not a model, but let me say an example. An example that others learn. We travel, those of us whose jobs and entail lots of travel. People ask you, how do you do it? Nothing happens. Your voting goes smoothly. There are no casualties. And I used to say, but, losing an election is not the end of the world, so why should we go killing each other? So it really, really took me by surprise. Okay. And I think it started with Ayawaso. Okay? I was telling myself, but this is a small by-election. Why should it degenerate into this? Why should anybody be hurt? Why should people be in hospital? That guy was there for more than a year. Why should this happen? You know, and when people come and boldly say, oh, this is a rehearsal for the future, I think security should have taken that very, very seriously.
Okay.
A rehearsal of what? For what future? And lo and behold, it's not the first time we have registered.
Yeah.
People go and register and come home, and like we having the what do you call the national card. You just go and register. Yes, there's a long wait and all of that, inconvenience sometimes, but you go through it and then you come home. Who expects that you need to go and register and somebody is dying? So they were very strange things and unacceptable that happened. Even for it to culminate in deaths, shooting of how many people? This is not acceptable. And nobody should look in the face of all of this and say that it was good. It was the best. How many people died in the past? Whether somebody died or not, the whole thing is wrong.
Okay.
Whether it's one person who died or 1,000 people who died, nobody should die because they're going to vote. We are not the kind of people. And whatever that went wrong is still waiting to be proved, and it's not acceptable, as I say. This is, and that's why I miss the National Commission for Civic Education. They need to be properly funded and empowered so we all understand what this is about. Okay. What is the soldier doing there? When we are going, should we know that? What should we expect? Are we going to have armed people at the polling station? Okay. Why? Is that a means to keep people away? If you know the police is going to be there, the army is going to be there, people are going to shoot people, who will go and vote? So doesn't that even defeat the whole idea that we need to vote? Okay. So there are so many things that need to be properly discussed, and the end has to be brought, it has to be brought to an end. I remember visiting, one of the places where a girl, I went to visit the mother, and it was such a sad story. So we just done our work, and she said she was going to sleep. Her 15-year-old daughter.
And that's
said,
good.
Good. Said, no, I'm just going to visit. And I think I'm a teacher. I would encourage my students to see what this is about. It doesn't hurt. People have always gone to watch the counting and jubilate, even if we haven't precisely understood what is going on. It's all part of the learning and growing up process. So she decides to go and sleep. Her daughter says, I'm going to watch. Then the next thing you hear is that your daughter is shot. How is she supposed to take that? And who is thinking about this woman today? Who is thinking about the family of all those people? Who is helping them to bring a sense of closure to this pain? Should it be an open wound forever? Should it be a patch of scars that that covers sore under it? That's not fair. So to say that is the best and so on, I think it's rather rubbing salt into people's pain. We should all be very careful about our words.
In fact, I think it's a question that Mamia Joa Sabia is asking, and it's a question that they've asked consistently about. Let me read what she says. Please ask her whether they are seeking justice for the people who died during the election. Should that be your responsibility? Because we're just talking about getting them closure. A lot of people feel it has to take your party to do that, to get the
have
state
you forgotten? I
to
think was it December 8th or so when the whole memorial was held for them? Yeah. But we also have the justice system. Are they interested in this? It's been a year. What can our party do? We can keep the subject alive, which is exactly what the party is doing, to ensure that we don't forget, and to ensure that once they are able to do so, once they have the power, the privilege to do so, they will have to bring a closure to this. Okay, so let the lady know that we cannot forget this at all.
You mentioned Sal yourself.
Yes.
Have you had the opportunity of being there?
Oh, yes. I visited during our thank you tour. We passed by. And even before then, you just think about it and ask why. This is a place where I think according to the narrative, they were notified some 48 hours to the voting or so that they could vote for the presidential, but they couldn't vote for the parliamentary. And that is what happened. So they don't have representation in parliament.
Okay.
So what system are we running? And I hear that efforts are being made to create a constituency. So even if they voted for the presidential, to what constituency were the votes added since they didn't have one?
We understand it was sent to Buem.
Why?
I don't know the reason.
So you see, people need answers. And in all of this is to ensure that our institution is running.
Okay.
It is to ensure we have faith in what we are doing. And this is what brings down tension in any society. It's not so much about agreeing, but it's about understanding.
Okay.
And it's about appreciating. It is when things are done in a transparent way. Let us say you and I had an issue, God forbid, we ended up in court. Things are done so clearly that I've lost.
Okay.
I can accept that. Okay? And you will be comfortable in your victory because you also know that things were done in a very clear, issues were not prejudged, the conclusion wasn't drawn somewhere and facts found to fit in. So it is when people understand, then they come to an acceptance. Okay, so maybe even you and I were not talking because we're in some litigation. It's over. At that point, it's over. I know that I was wrong or you were right. You move on from there.
Okay.
But it is where people of course, they don't understand. Who says the vote was added? What vote? At what point?
Okay.
Why couldn't they vote? And who saw that whatever the demarcation was such that they didn't have a constituency? Are we supposed to believe that somebody saw that 48 hours to the voting? Was that a revelation? A vision?
I guess
So and I think it's a saying on our democracy that you can have a people who have no representation. So where should they pass the issues? So if they have issues at the presidential level, they should go to Buem. I mean, what is that?
Because then how do you think that issue should be resolved? Because there are people who are feeling that, and from all arrangements, there are questions about whether, are we saying for the next 4 years, there'll be nobody speaking for them?
This is a question for the Electoral Commission to answer.
Okay.
Okay? And for whoever did the demarcation of the regions or the constituencies, that's for them to answer. At what point did they see that these people didn't have a constituency?
Okay.
At what point? And what have they done about it? And why has it taken a whole year for them to realize that they now need to create a constituency? When are they going to vote? When are they going to have a rep in parliament? If there are issues there today, where should they go? Why should the rest of us have more privilege than them? I know who my MP is. I don't bother him too much, but sometimes. But at least I know he's there. But to tell me that I have none, why?
Prof, let me ask you a question about the presidential elections, because up till now, I still have people who sent me messages about whether or not you actually did lose the elections in 2020 or not. Is that something that still occurs to you, that you feel that, well, these elections has not been properly concluded?
Well, I think your words are very commonly felt by many people, because here we are, we just talked about SAR. Okay, we just talked about military people in stations. We've talked about the regional collation centers and so many things that were new all of a sudden. We've talked about military people in places that they shouldn't be, or paramilitary. I don't know whether they were military, whether they were, excuse me, whoever they were, armed people. You know, when we go to vote, it's not about war. Okay, even if it's war at the esoteric level, not at the polling station. So when all of these things happen, then it makes it difficult for people to believe in the system and to believe in the outcome. And as you say, tomorrow this percentage is changed, another day, changing. We've had election in this country before. If this were our first time, we would all forgive the electoral commissioner and the commission too, to say that, okay, these are teething problems. You can't have teething problems in your old age. We have voted long enough for this not to have happened.
Okay. So we are still watching my conversation with Professor Naana Opoku Agyemang. I will just take a short music break for her to take in some water. Because we've actually gotten her at not
so it's all for my sake.
not at a very good time. So just a moment. We're back shortly with some more. And some 35 minutes past 9, I still have Prof in the studio with me, Professor Naana Opoku Agyemang. Here, she's a 2020 running mate of the NDC, but here, when she comes here, she comes home. Because, in fact, when you're walking into the studios, we have a small hall there. We have some pictures posted on the walls. If you go and check those pictures, you can find at least 2 that has Prof's face in it. And because Prof spends some time here working, and so Prof is home. By the way, I think it's whilst we're on the break, somebody just referred to it. I recall the last time we had a conversation with you as a team, I told you how you felt like, because you were supposed to be on retirement. And it looks like you're doing, I don't know, the most work.
You see, can you imagine that?
The most work in retirement. How did you feel like? Because having to go through this whole campaign thing, not sleeping, and sometimes sleeping less, little sleep, and you were even balancing it with the manifesto and what was happening to the manifesto before the manifesto was launched and everything. How was the experience like?
Yeah, many have asked this question, and I'll say that was exciting. I think it's a question of what it is that you need to do at any stage in your life. Okay. If you're a mother, you're a wife, you have a job, you do all of them.
Okay.
So let me say that as women, we hardly have those vacations, where you just move, pack your bags away from everything and everyone, and then. So, but let me say that, it wasn't as if I was doing it all by myself.
Okay.
No, I had a lot of support.
Okay.
I had a lot of goodwill. I was even surprised, at the
And
level of
people
support. Yes.
were ready to support.
People volunteered everywhere. And that also gives you the encouragement to put your best foot forward.
Okay.
When young people, older people, I remember there was one scene, I've even written about it in my memoirs, where there was an old lady. The crowds were big.
Okay.
And I wasn't used to that kind of crowd. The crowd was big, and I could see from a distance an old lady with a walking stick trying to come close.
Okay.
And people shoving. So I called one of the security persons, and I asked, "Have you seen that lady there?" He said, "I said, go and bring her close.
Okay.
Yeah, walk her through the crowd. I think she wants to get close."
Okay.
So he does that, and the old lady comes close, and then I bent. I was standing, in the car. So I bent down to greet her, and all she said was that, "Ira, Nyame nhyira wo ate." I was so touched. I was so touched. Yes, she can hardly walk. It's not as if people have carried her for show. No. And I spotted her from a distance.
Okay.
And I could see how the crowd was treating her. Later on I said, shame on you, look at her. And is that how you can use your youth? You should rather help her. So there are many scenes. And as I said, you wanted to know how balancing and so on. When people have expectations of you, you try not to let them down. And I'm not saying I did everything perfectly.
Okay.
I didn't. I'm not saying I was I was the best or no. I don't look at myself that way. I look at myself like whatever I've done today that I think is good, that others think is good, I can try to improve.
Okay.
And what I've done today that others think is not so good, I can try to amend. So I try not to compare myself with anybody. Okay? And I used to tell my students, so this assignment wasn't very good. How about the next one? Or this assignment you got an A. What are you doing to ensure that the next one is also an A? That is all. Not that, I got an A, everybody got a D, so I'm better. You are not. Maybe you can get much better. And the person who got a C can come and pass you.
I was even surprised because there was something that came out about you actually supervising PhD candidates.
Oh, yeah.
At the time you were campaigning.
Yes. I was still a member of the faculty of the University of Cape Coast.
Wow.
Yeah. And as I explained to the Vice Chancellor, my head of department and provost and everything, I wasn't going to teach, like taking a folder to go to the lecture. I said, even the students will suffer. Okay. So that was a condition they accepted.
Okay.
And I said, after supervising, I can do that.
Okay.
So I remember my last PhD student was in November, prior to the campaign.
Oh.
Yeah, so we tried to find one day. And she was so nice to come from Takoradi. So...
to come and meet you in Accra?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we went, I devoted the whole day to her. We went page by page, had lunch, we stopped, we laughed, we joked, we continued. But at the end of the day, everything was done. It was late.
Okay.
So she had to spend the night and then go and improve on the draft, which she did. It was a lady too, really. Not that I wouldn't have done it, it was and male students too. But this one, I felt, as I do feel obliged to all the young ladies, I had to help them also to come up. So then she did what I thought was a decent draft.
Okay.
Then our final meeting was in Cape Coast one Sunday. And that was it. She's defended, she's free, and I'm happy.
Are you still with them or you've left the faculty?
No, now I've left the faculty.
But now you have time, you have a little bit of time on your hand.
You say, this is where you realize that, I didn't even know I was so busy. Because this thing is off and I feel I should feel freer. And yet you don't feel as free as you thought you should.
So you haven't had time to rest?
People ask that question. Rest as in,
I said, have some.
Like I'm not sitting in your studio.
But at least there's less. There's a pressure.
Oh,
less
of
now.
course,
Yeah.
we are not doing the campaign.
Okay.
That was really intense. We are not doing the campaign. We are more or less stationary.
Okay.
As opposed to, let's say, last year and let me say 90% of this year.
Okay.
Things have settled down a bit. Okay. We are done with our tours and so on and so forth. But it doesn't mean it's over. The party is still alive, the party is still active, and very, very focused and working hard, and so should everyone.
Well, Prof, I wanted to ask you one last question on this.
Go ahead.
The elections. Usually when you go through this kind of experience, there are some lessons that you carry with you. What are the lessons for yourself and for Ghana? Perhaps the question is, will Prof do it again?
We haven't gotten to that bridge, so we won't cross it.
Because former President Mahama has already announced that he will contest.
Listen, that is a prerogative. The vice presidential position is not one you contest.
Okay.
You don't write a vision statement and attend an interview, like you would, so it's a different thing altogether.
Okay.
It's up to him.
Okay.
What I know is that I'll work for him regardless.
Okay.
That much I know. As to the lessons learned, you learn many, many things. You learn. It wasn't a very big learning opportunity for me in terms of working with people, because that's what I've done all the time. Yeah. Even on the campus, you have the undergraduates, those who just walked from the secondary school. Okay. Even at the undergraduates, then you have the third years, fourth years, they're a bit more mature. Then you have your graduate students, the fresh master's students, the fresh PhD students, and so on and so forth. And as an administrator, you learn to work with your colleagues, your senior colleagues, your junior colleagues, the colleagues at your level. If you say the administrators, you have from the registrar right down, you have your junior workers, my people, the TEU, and they are not, they are TEU, but differentiations okay. So maybe I've had the opportunity to have worked with a whole mix of people. And I think that was a huge advantage for me. Another lesson would be time management. Maybe for all of us, and maybe it's not just the campaign. And all of us also to learn a bit of geography. From distance. From this to that end, how long will it take you? But for me, the biggest learning opportunity was to have known Ghana better than I did. Okay. In my previous life,
to know Ghana far better.
Oh yes. In my previous work, I used to do field work in the Upper West, Golu, Sankana area. But that was it. But this time, going everywhere. You see Ghana in a different light. Because I used to ask my campaign team, you watch out. Here we are in a certain town. Let's see how many schools we are going to see on the road. There's a school. Let's see, where is the next school? Okay? There's a clinic here. Where is the next clinic? There's a police station here. Where is the next police station? How many minutes has it taken us, or hours has it taken us to travel this 50-kilometer road? You get to see many things, and you see many women maybe coming with bowls of water on their heads. And we are sitting in the car and we are complaining, we are tired. You see? So you keep driving and then you see this pond, and that is where they are fetching the water. It opens your eyes to the things that should be of importance to us. All of us living here, and we should complain too, but it shouldn't blind us to those who don't have water. I mean, is that asking for too much? Water. What's the substitute for water? And if the schools that I have seen in the ministry already, distancing, so we needed to do mapping of the school. So if I live here and the next primary school is at Kolebu, am I going to leave my 6-year-old to walk back and forth? Maybe I'll wait till she's 8 or 9. So we can sit here and say, oh, children don't go in the certain parts of the country, they don't go at the right, age. Who are you to determine what the right age is? When you haven't put in place the right things they must also have. So it opens your eyes to many, many things. And as I said, I had a bit of experience doing that field work in Upper West, But to see it on a larger scale just tells you we need to get our priorities right in this country. We can't continue like this. Why are we surprised everybody's coming to Accra? Where should they go? Why are we not all running to their villages? See? So for me, the lessons were big. And they confirmed. I was very thankful also that the method we applied to our manifesto was right, because we got the views from them. And they were not asking for the moon. They were not asking for luxury. They're just asking for basic things that some of us have come to take for granted. Okay, so for me, these were some of the biggest lessons. And I'm very, very thankful. I'm extremely thankful to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for giving me this honor, this privilege. I'm forever thankful to him.
There's because whilst you're talking, I was just wondering, because one of the biggest disagreements in Parliament is over an E-levy now, for which your side is ready to fight. But I'll come to that. But one of the things that presidents usually do in Parliament is to go and stand before us and tell us the state of the nation. You had an opportunity of going through this country. What was the state? What is the state of our country from what you saw?
No, from what I saw, I feel that we lack many. They are not even basic. They are fundamental.
Okay.
There are things that should be there after all these years. I've mentioned water. You can go on to talk about food.
Okay.
If you have a part of the country where, through no fault of theirs, but they have one rainy season in a year, you know that the possibility of famine is high. You need to put in the roads. And the painful thing is that it is rather in these areas that you see that they are such hard workers. They've produced so much food.
Even with one rainy season.
Even with one rainy season. You can only respect them. And what do you need to do to ensure that the food can come to those of us who don't know how to farm?
Okay.
Is that asking for too much? I don't think so. Okay? So if you talk about the state, what I'll say is that yes, we've done well as a country, but we have much further. We have much further to go.
Okay.
We cannot keep concentrating things in the cities. We must open up. We must realize that the people there need the things those in the cities have.
Okay.
And I think that will be a good definition of democracy and of equity. We must recognize that the child in that place is no less bright because the parents are poor or they cannot send the child to what we think is, a good, I'm putting that in quotes, good school. We must realize that, yes, the people in the cities get sick, so do they. And they also need the same facilities. They also need the same employment opportunities and diversity. Okay? So if we begin to conceive of our nation as one people in the true sense of it, if we say one people, what does it mean? One people with one destiny, others are suffering. Are they part of that one people? So let us move away from the slogan, one people, one destiny, and so on. Meanwhile, we know we are depriving some of the basic things they should have. So let us break that down and be able to reach everyone. It's not about whether in my area there's this mineral or that. Whose area? We are all a people of migrants. Let's be aware of our history. None of us put that gold in the ground or whatever the minerals are. We came and found them. And that is why all these are vested in the state. And those resources must be properly used to ensure that people are not left behind. And again, people not being left behind does not become a slogan. For how long have you used that? It is not for nothing that even the AU has the Africa We Want 2063. Why do you think United Nations started these millennium plans, MDGs, SDGs, and so on? Why do you think they started that? And I suppose it's because they have seen these gaps that stare us in the face every day. What are we doing about them? So they'll have to say, oh, by the end of 15 years, everybody should have had this and that. And I remember those days in my days in UNESCO, telling them, but you know that's not possible. What you are saying everybody should have, some of you have already and more. So even looked at that angle, it's like we are always going to be behind. So I was very happy about the SDGs, that you can craft out your own plans out of. Okay. So that you see where you are and you'll be realistic about where you can be. So I used to be very excited about the work that Professor Boche and Nimoy Thompson and so on were doing, their 40-year plan. Because that should guide all of us. If you decide you are changing something today, when will it mature? Where will you be as a nation at that time? Okay, let me go to my own area of education. So I want to teach the children this. They are 6 years old. Okay, when will they start working? How many years? At that time, where will your economy be? What? Yeah, and it is that kind of planning that we need, long term.
Okay.
It's not a 4-year plan. So that whoever comes for 4 years or 8 years can carve the plan out of that. Okay. That we will make progress. And all these countries we compare ourselves with, there isn't one that hasn't done so. Some of us were privileged to see some of their long-term plans. The blueprint, I think, of Malaysia. Fascinating document. Why wouldn't they pass you? You know, so if you are just having back and forth and stop and start and so on and so on, you are going nowhere. You're just wasting everybody's time. What kind of economy do you want to have in, I don't know, 20 years' time?
Okay.
There are people out of school already. How do you repackage the training to ensure that they can come on that train? Okay, in which of the coaches are they on? And those on the last coach, the class 1 people, by the time they get to, let's say, in 20 years' time, where will the economy be? So what should they be learning now? It's not that we are doing it because it's done in this country. Nobody plans their country, their education, because somebody else is doing it. Okay. You plan it according to where you want to be. Okay, so if you decide a skills training, what skills? Skill is not one thing. What skills? You decide you want to be industrialized. You decide you want to add value to your primary commodities. Which values? What primary commodities? Where should people start learning? How about our mindsets? Do we even respect them? In the schools, who has gone there? Who are the teachers there? When was the last time they had a workshop? How about the material? How about the tools? How about the modes of examining? Are they being examined? They're studying in Ghana. You want to add value to Opoku and they're taking some guild exam somewhere else. What does it mean? What should it mean for you? So that when they have the certificate, to do what? So I think that in our sober moments, we should all sit down and think and plan and do things that will help the future of our country and our present too.
Okay. But having said that, then what did you make of the decision to, because you talk about the work that was done by Professor Boche and Dr. Nimoy Thompson and the team.
Yes.
What do you make of the decision? Because this government inherited that plan. By the time they were done, your government was out of power. So they essentially would have to, start the implementation process. They decided that didn't work for them.
Okay, if it didn't work for them, we need to know why.
Said it was 40 years was too long.
AU, we are all members of AU. Have we protested that they have the Africa One 2063? Have we protested? What is too long? The life of a country is not 4 years. Okay? If you decide it is too long, what makes it so long? For how long? Then we sit down, they will say, oh, 63 years after independence. Is that short? Is that long? Okay? Yeah, so you're not going to be in power for 63 years, but you can carve something out of it. That's what I'm talking about. Okay? You carve something out of it. You implement it. Someone also comes, reviews it, carves something, and then we move along as a nation. Okay. If you say it's too long, no problem. So what short one do we have? Which one that is not so long we have now? Okay.
So the alternative.
So you see, it shouldn't just be, oh, you did this, I don't like your face, and so I've thrown it away. No, we keep doing that. We are going nowhere. We won't be helping our own image. We won't be helping our youth. We won't be helping anybody.
Well, let me ask you one last question on that. Because you were just talking about, you mentioned a few slogans that we have used over the years.
Sometimes leaving no one behind.
So we get are you saying that we get the slogans right, but the work on the ground little?
It's not. I think what I'm saying is that leaving no one behind. You said this since, I think, maybe, I don't know, 15 years, thereabouts, or less. I don't have the exact date. So what I'm saying is that we need to believe that.
Okay.
We need to believe that we are not leaving anybody behind. And the belief will show in the programs we bring and how we implement them.
Okay.
Okay? If you are implementing in such a way that it is embracing everybody, then it means that they are not just words. They are words with meaning, and that meaning is reflecting in how you are proceeding. Okay? If it's about health for all by 2000, who is that all? Okay? How come the time came and left and still people don't have access? Okay? So this is exactly what I mean.
Yeah. Because whilst you're going around, I'm wondering, one of the things you heard constantly was perhaps what your opponent was saying, or what the MPP was saying, that they've done one district, one factory, one village, one dam. They are planting for food and jobs, $1 million per constituency. Those are things that should really be transformative. Did you see any face to face with a lot of the achievements from those programs?
You see, if we hadn't come out of power, many people would not even have known that we did so many hospitals.
Okay.
They would not have known we did so many cocoa roads. We built so many schools. We were told you couldn't even build one school. You heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So whether it is, do we have bumper harvest now? You know, if the 1 million per constituency per year went, it won't be Nana Opoku Agyemang sitting here saying so. Okay? If all those things happened, I won't be the only one to say they happened or didn't happen.
Okay.
And I don't have to be the one to say every year that I've done this and I've done this and I've done that. Yes, I have to give a report to show what I'm doing. But it shouldn't be on such a regular basis as if the rest of us don't see. Okay? So are we seeing and we are refusing to acknowledge? Are the assemblies saying that they got their 1 million, so this is the 5th year? So far they have received $5 million or not? This facility is cited in an assembly, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can find out from them whether they received $5 million or not. All I'm saying is that I saw a lot of deprivation that I thought was unacceptable.
Okay.
Okay? And that as a nation we should do better than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Prof, let me then bring you into contemporary times. I'm sure you're watching Parliament as keenly as we are also doing.
Yeah.
What do you make of Parliament now?
You see, I just feel that we have not taken the time to study and make use of the full meaning of democracy.
Okay.
Even as we've come into the since 1992.
Yeah,
Let me put
the
it
Fourth
that way.
Republic. Yeah.
And I feel that we have used too much numbers to arrive at conclusions.
Okay.
Remember the saying, oh, you can have your say, what is it? You can
I'll
have
have
your
my way.
say, I'll have my way.
Yes.
That is a very dangerous statement. I see it that way.
Okay.
It means you are not listening. It means you've set yourself away from the path of consensus. But democracy should be, by definition, a consensus building and reaching, let me say, facility, dispensation rather. So yes, you talk all you want, scream all you want, yell all you want. You can somersault if you want. But I've made up my mind already. So you have prejudged the conclusion. That cannot be democracy. That cannot be democracy. You see, it can be, let me use the example of UNESCO. We felt, and I think it's still there,
Okay.
that when we vote, it means we have failed. We reach our conclusions by consensus, no matter what. And you look at 54 then countries representing the executive board with the power blocks and a whole lot of things.
Okay.
So we could sit there forever. Even if one country disagreed, you have to bring that country on board. So you don't just watch the numbers and so, hey, let's just move on. If you want everybody to come along with a certain decision, you must have the respect, you must have the patience to listen. Okay, you don't just abuse power and say, you'll do it no matter what. That's not what it's about.
And you see a semblance
And
of that.
I think that is what has built up to this. Because you see, if we had been using consensus, if we had been, as we should have, if we had been listening to each other, as we should have, if we had factored dissenting views into our own, as we should have all over these years, we wouldn't be where we are now. But at this particular time, it becomes even more imperative because we have a hung parliament.
Okay.
If you weren't listening, then you must learn to listen now. So it's not a matter of going behind, trying to remove the numbers, taking this to court, and putting the injunction here and there. Will it bring peace? In the end, what is it that we want? What is the larger picture for Ghana? Is it a country at peace with itself or not? So we need to look at the larger picture.
Okay.
And then all these building blocks, where are they leading? These are conversations we must have. And if that is the case, and we have rules, we have, what did they call it, standing orders.
Yes, yeah. And the constitution.
You have all of them. It's not about me interpreting it the way I want. Who are you? You can't be bigger than the whole country. You are a representative. What it means is that you are accountable to the people who sent you there. They didn't send you there because, excuse me to say, you are the most intelligent or the most handsome or the most beautiful. Okay, so it's not about maybe my side fighting. How about the other side? Talk to the people in the streets who don't want this levy, or those who want it. Won't they cut across the lines? Okay, so and it's also a sign of how badly polarized our country is.
Okay.
to ridiculous proportions, absolutely ridiculous proportions, and in places where they shouldn't be. How can you polarize scholarship? So even on the campus, you have the. I mean, what do we want? A paper is good or is not, finished. If it's not good, let the student know what is wrong and how he can improve on it. If at that level too, among the undergraduates, listen, then we're on the way to extinction. And it's not funny.
So what we are saying is the effect of the way we have chosen to work in a democracy.
No, you see, maybe we have not even bothered to discuss enough. What is it that we are doing? And why are we doing it that way? Especially in a multi-party democracy. Everybody brings something to the table.
Okay.
We can compare it with, let's say we're having dinner, and we also let everybody bring something. So we all bring plain rice. How are things going to work? Or we all bring chicken, or we all bring whatever vegetables. Everybody will bring something. We need to learn to respect the views of the different things that people are bringing. And I don't think that it's a sign of defeat to say that, oh, I thought this way, but now I see your point. Okay. It's rather a sign of strength. It's a sign of strength to be able to tolerate views that don't agree with yours. And that is also an opportunity for growth. If others are doing it elsewhere, I remember I was talking to somebody who was saying, oh, but this sort of polarization, it exists. I won't mention the person's name or the country, but I said, in your country, I doubt if women wake up at 4 a.m. to go and fetch water. You've crossed that bridge. We are not even building that bridge yet. I doubt if in your country you have children walking how many miles to go to school and come back. Okay? How many subsistence farmers do you have? How much money do they get for their groundnuts that they can grow in the year? So let's not start equalizing here. You have solved some basic problems. We are here to do so. Our attention should go to the vulnerable. Okay? And try to take them out of these unacceptable levels of poverty, unacceptable levels of misery. We need to learn to take care of ourselves. We live in a country where we import everything. How much money will be enough for us? How much money will be enough for that? Everything. We live in the tropics. The weather doesn't get better anywhere than this one. Almost everything grows here. At least what we need will grow here. And yet food, clothing, shelter, everything is imported. Why are you surprised that your youth will go and drown in the Mediterranean, going to work in the factories that have imported your raw materials? Don't we see the irony? They will say, oh, you look, I don't want to be personal, but sorry, look at this room. What in this room has been made in Ghana? And anybody listening, please look in your own office or even your own home. They will say, our finishing is not good. How will the finishing get good when you have not raised the value of training? We've had our polytechnics forever. We are training low level, middle level. All those who do the furniture that you like, how are they trained? And who says your children cannot be trained that way? And I think these are some of the conversations we must have.
But there are those who also say, if you look at this current parliament, the challenge is actually a challenge of leadership. You talk about the approach. Because recently we heard the president when he was speaking at the NPP delegates conference. We've heard the majority leader consistently speak. Under former President John Dramani Mahama, the right to information bill was ready. They could have passed it when they wanted to, but because the other side disagreed, they decided to shelve it until they are able to come to a consensus. Do you think the leadership currently is also troublesome?
maybe we are all troublesome. But I mean,
oh, it's unhelpful. Perhaps that's the language
no, I think that more, at least seriously, they're also going through a phase.
Okay.
And I don't know who is helping them. Okay. I don't think they've also ever faced this situation.
Okay.
So they're using the old method.
When they had 169 to do it.
It's about the old wines in new skin or something like that.
Okay.
And the confusion will happen.
Okay.
It's rather unfortunate. We shouldn't get to this level at all. Shouldn't get to this level. But who is helping them? What's the hang parliament? What do we understand by that? What strategies should occur? That is why, if we had taken our democracy seriously about consensus building right from the beginning, we may have some roots to work with. But because that had not been so strong in the past, now we are just floundering. Whoever thought that a fight can break out in our parliament? And it's not only this time. It started in January. Yeah. Is it 6 or thereabouts?
Yes. The dawn of the 7th.
Can you imagine? Ghana? Because it has to be the old method of, I don't agree with you, like it happened during the elections. So I've taken the ballot box and I'm sending it to the EC office. And by the time we get to the EC office, the ballot box has disappeared. No, that's not acceptable. If they need help, and I think some of them need help, let us find where that help will come and give it to them. Because in the end, it's not about them, it's about all of us. The effects will accrue to all of us. And if a study has come out to say that over 90% or 80% of the people dislike something, it means that going forward, you need to adopt a different strategy in coming to that announcement. And that's why, for me, I'm a very strong one for public education. You need to be open. You need to be transparent. But if I'm telling you everything is fine, we are doing well, self-flagellation. I'm doing so well. This is the first time I've done this. I'm doing so well. Then all of a sudden, you want to tell me something else. It's hard to swallow. It's very hard to swallow. But you see, like in your own home, if you tell your children, you know something, maybe this year, instead of having individual birthday parties, we'll have one at Christmas. Then they'll ask you why. And you explain why. And you do that. So for mom and dad and all of us, we just have a party on Christmas Day. Because we feel all these small parties are becoming expensive, and we'd rather use the money to buy them books or storybooks. And they say you buy the storybooks for them. You have the children. Their trust in you is solidified. If you come with this rule in January, that listen, this whole small parties and so on, and then when it's mommy's birthday, we have a bash, and it's daddy's birthday, we have a bash, and we ignore the children's birthdays, then the following year you tell them, who will take you seriously? And more seriously, you have lost them, because they will not trust what you say anymore. And when the time comes when they need your advice, they may not even come to you. And if they have to come to you, they will not trust what you are saying, because you've broken that trust. So some of these things that we do, we've done this, we've done that, it should be you shouldn't be the only one to be saying so. You see, you shouldn't be the only one saying so, because you are not doing the work for yourself to set your own questions and answer them and then say I've done well. It's for the public to judge you. If the public organizes a big demonstration to say, we've received our 1 million per constituency per year, we have 5 million, you don't have to talk.
But now let me take your opinion on, do you agree with the E-levy?
As a form, you see, it's not just the E-levy for me. as a person. I know that the party has taken a position.
Okay.
And many Ghanaians support that position.
Okay.
Even those who are pretending to be fighting, they know in their hearts and from their constituencies that they are warning them not to bring it. As a form of taxation, I don't think that Ghanaians are afraid of paying taxes.
Okay.
We are a people-centered people, if I may put it that way.
Okay.
Listen, we were hit by the COVID last year. You saw individuals, you saw churches, you saw businesses contributing to deal with this menace. So we are not a people who are afraid of helping. Yeah, we complain about the taxes, but we pay. And we want to know where the taxes go.
Okay.
If we see the schools being built, if we see the hospitals being built, the roads being fixed, our security heightened, food on the table, we will still complain, but we'll pay. But when we don't see those things, where accountability has become so low, as in, so what? Already you say, no, you've done many things. And you say, okay, show us. And some even say, no, we don't even need to tell you what we are spending on X. That kind of attitude does not endear you to people. Okay? So there are many things going into the rejection of the E-levy. Okay. Because for how long are you going to collect this? For how long? And given the way the public education on it has been so poor, from what I hear, people are already taking their monies out.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a good idea at all. Whatever it is you want to introduce, let people, don't hit people with the conclusion and then try to structure a story. Begin with a story. Let them understand, folks, this is where we are. We said, listen, the meat is gone, we only have the bones. We need to go to the IMF. Be open. What happened? No, we will not go to IMF, so on and so forth. But COVID came and quickly we were there. That's where the mistrust begins. Okay, we have enough for 4 months. In 2 weeks' time, you're already running around looking for money. So people begin to look at you again and ask, so what should we have? What have we been believing that is not true? So the strategy was wrong, and that is why the conclusion is also not working well.
So the inconsistency in what they say and what people see, and sometimes even you say one thing today, you see another thing the next day, you think has created a credibility gap for them with the public?
By all means, it has. If you are not consistent, you see, we can be as broke as we want, but let people know this is it. This is how we got here. This is how we intend to get out of it. But don't say this is the only means. Throw the question out there. Maybe in your mind is the only means. Do other people have any other means? Don't say this is the only means, this is where I stand and that's it. You'll get a pushback. Okay. Especially as you say, you have not been very consistent in how it is that you're going to solve the problems. If you can lay out what those factories are producing, how many people they're employing, as opposed to before, and so on and so forth. People Ghanaians are reasonable. They may not like your face and all of that, but they'll come along, even if they have to come along screaming. They'll come along anyway. So you just have to be very open.
And talking about that, I know this may be something that we haven't even talking about, but it's something that has come up. Because we were just talking about talking to the people ahead, the language you use. I don't know if you've monitored the reaction of the members of your party to the recent announcement by former President John Dramani Mahama that Kabir Chudaku's cousin to the president came to see him. People were of the opinion that he shouldn't even have entertained him. Is this something you understand from that kind of language?
Sorry, I have not discussed this with him.
Okay.
So I don't want to comment on it now.
Okay.
Okay. I have not discussed it with him.
Okay.
when I do, then I'll understand more.
Okay. Prof, but let me now move you to, because I have been, but there are several questions that are coming in from people.
Okay.
But I'll come back to their questions.
Okay.
But I will take you to the area of education. Nowadays, it looks like education, what we talk about is senior high school education. Is that helpful at all? Because it looks like everything is free SHS.
I think I've said in many places and on many platforms that education does not begin at the senior high school level.
Okay.
No one begins education there.
Okay.
Maybe some do after some kind of preparation and so on. But generally begins at the primary school level.
Okay.
You can pick any, you see, and I always liken it to a chain, okay, with all the links. You can take one of the links, polish it all you want, but the chain is as strong as its weakest link.
Okay.
Okay? So yes, we've all become, or we've been made to become fixated on the senior secondary level. Why? How about before and after? Okay. The students who end up at the senior secondary level come in from the junior secondaries. They would have spent half their secondary school years already.
Okay.
And that is why the population is higher. That is why they are younger. That is why the attrition rate is also great. What are we doing about that?
Okay.
Okay. So all this is just that because we have the F cube and primary school education was compulsory and free. That is at the basic level. And when you get to secondary school, there are all kinds of extraneous fees that come together. And also, you don't have as many senior high schools as junior high schools, because the junior high schools were attached to the primary level.
Okay.
So you have many more than the senior high schools.
Okay.
So because of that, entry became a problem.
Okay.
So what do? You always just look through the data. And every year you'd have seen the backlog of people who couldn't get in. So access was a problem.
Okay.
And at the same time, quality was also a problem.
Okay.
And for me, relevance was a problem. And what I'll add now is diversity.
Access, quality, relevance, diversity.
You need to diverse. And that's what we're doing in our People's Manifesto.
Okay.
You must diverse the terrain.
Okay.
You see, it shouldn't be that, oh, I didn't go to, I don't know, this secondary school, and that, or I couldn't, or I wasn't smart enough, and that is why I went to a technical school. That language must be expunged immediately.
Okay.
That's where my strength is. That's where my interest is. And that's where the government needs people from.
Okay.
So what we tried to do was to work on the most difficult aspect. The most difficult aspect for me and my team at the ministry wasn't so much that they didn't have equipment, although that was critical. They didn't have the equipment.
Okay.
But you can solve that easily by providing the equipment. They didn't have the technicians to set up the labs for the teacher to do his or her work. So you can train technicians. That's easy to solve. Maybe the school was so constricted it could take only 30 students when you know that they can take 100 finally. So you go and expand it. Again, that is difficult, but it is doable. For me, the most difficult was the perception. How do we perceive the children in the technical vocational schools? And how do they see themselves? Okay, so when I'm talking about diversity at the secondary level, these are some of the things we need to pay attention to. How do you turn things around that way so that that child has confidence and the public also has the necessary respect and confidence to cheer this person on and not to see him or her immediately as a failure? You see? Then you cannot turn around and say you need skills. Where are you going to get the skills from? Then you say it's all the fault of the grammar schools. It's your own fault because you have not placed the priorities where they belong. Okay. So I think that, yes, even as we pay attention to senior secondary school. We must pay attention to junior secondary school. We must pay attention to the tertiary terrain is already diverse.
Okay.
You can go to medical school, you can go to a professional school, you can even at the you can go into education, which is also professional. You can go into nursing, you know. It's already diversified. So then you need to ask yourself, but they take their population from the secondary, which is not so diverse. You see that there's already a gap there.
Okay.
So these are some of the conversations that we could have in order to see how do we fill those gaps. When they come to one diversified tertiary terrain without the adequate preparation, what does it mean? You know, what should we put in place to ensure that this gap is filled, that there's a smooth transition for the learner? Otherwise, they come, they don't know anything, and that language too is not helpful. You know, they don't know. They are there to learn. Please help them to learn. But you know that there's something behind that statement. What is it? And how do you close that statement? Yeah.
Then what do you make of the proposal of, because you just said that secondary education has always been 6 years. Starts with junior high school, then goes to senior high school. The proposal is to put all of them together, put both the junior high school and senior high school together in one huge edifice, one huge building. What do you make of that?
Well, you see, I'm not the one to go condemning or accepting when I don't have the full picture. Now, I remember those days when the whole free senior secondary, some of us said, share the blueprint with us. We were met with insults. It didn't help anyone. Many people just pulled back and watched. That shouldn't be happening. Okay. So the literature is there. You see, let me use the example of Nigeria. Nigeria introduced the JHS before we did. And what they did was to attach it to the senior level. So that theoretically those teaching the senior secondary schools were a little bit more trained. So then they could share the expertise with the junior level. But again, look at the WAEC. We didn't have that and we're doing very well anyway. But you see, we have a peculiar situation with our secondary education in this country. And we try to break that to the day secondary schools. And the propaganda was that when they came, they'll turn everything into a boarding school. So we try to go around that problem too by doing the community day schools. So we have a peculiar problem in the sense that we have a very high number of boarding schools in this country. And they are not evenly distributed. You can count how many in Cape Coast alone. In many places you won't have that. In fact, when we came into the ministry, that is when we did the homework to realize that there were as many as, a big number, 30-something new districts without a single secondary school. You see, they don't even have any. So those who go to Wesley Girls, Holy Child, Presec, and so on and so forth. So a lot of them, given our history and so on, that's what it's been. So now, if the problem is that the performance is not good, then accept that the performance is not good. And you feel that the solution is to attach them to senior secondary school. Say so. Will they also be boarding? Will they be day? Will they transit? If you put one in Wesley Girls High School in Cape Coast, does it mean that they'll go automatically to Wesley Girls High School? Or when the time comes, they will be distributed all over the place? We need to think through this. And as I said, we need to get the material on it. What is going into this? Because it's about our children. It's not about any party. It's about the future of this country. It's about my children. It's about yours. It's about someone else's. And we all need to have a voice in this. So if you start by shoving people and calling them names and insulting them, it won't solve any problem. We need to understand what is going on. And again, you need to understand that, yes, no matter how good the idea is, maybe there are other ideas you can learn from. We can all learn from each other.
So conversations have to be had.
we need to understand what has gone into this decision in the first place. I'm sure there's a lot of work, research. I don't know. Definitely there ought to be some research that has been done. Share the research findings. Let us know where are we going, and then practically how are we going about it. Once we understand, this is what I was talking about, bringing, not hitting people with a conclusion, but beginning with the story, with the narrative, so that once we all get to the conclusion, then it's easy on you, whoever is implementing.
Okay.
And if you also open yourself up to ideas, even in the process of implementation, people can make their comments. And in the end, it inures to everybody, you know.
Well, Prof, recently there has been a talk about the WASI results of those who have come out of the free SHS. And it's been celebrated as success, that when they started this, there were lots of criticism and everything. Can that be a measure?
Listen, we all want the children to succeed.
Okay.
We all want the children to do very well. Everybody will have critics. We had plenty of them in the ministry. But our focus was not to do something to shame them. Our focus was to do something to build the children's confidence and to help them onto a good path for the future. So it depends on why you are doing something. What was the rationale behind it? Am I doing it to make sure that you said it couldn't be done? Not that people said it couldn't be done. We said, how are you doing this? The headmaster spoke. What happened to them? How about the teachers? How about the parents? And the headmaster is the academic leader of the school and the head of administration of the school. And if he's telling you have these difficulties, you must listen. You don't just sack them or dismiss them. If half the stories we hear are true, then it's not so much that, no, I have my idea and you are working against it. It's not your idea. It's the country. The country is not anybody's private property. It's everybody's. Okay. So if the results have come, I remember when we all got wind that some papers were leaking and so on, even answers were leaking. I never heard that in my life, that even answers too could leak.
Including the examiners list.
A whole lot of things. Who is examining? So it means that something has been compromised. And what response did we get? Even somebody said, oh, they should take me to court. You look at, that's ridiculous. To court over what? Haven't we had problems with WAEC before? How did we seal the leakages before we left office? Okay, because everybody can improve and disasters can happen. So if you read the Education Watch report, have they taken them to court? If they're saying every other paper leaked, we should be very worried. If it is true, we should be very worried. In the sense that children shouldn't have the impression that they don't have to work for anything. Now, what kind of population are we growing? We should be very, very worried. And so, yes, they must pass. So they have passed, and you are ashamed. So what? To what end is that?
Well, Prof, I think we are way past our time. In fact, 35 minutes past, so Prof needs to go. My producers are putting pressure on me, but we can't take calls. I've already given Prof time. But before you go, Prof, just one or two questions from those who are watching us. Do you know Teacher Kojo?
I've heard the name, but I don't know him.
Okay, because recently he was sacked from the teaching field. One of our listeners wants your opinion on it, that as you ask about it, I hear it's about his subordination, that he's been going around talking about the state of our schools and the GS.
What was he saying?
Wasn't about
there were problems.
Yeah, there were problems.
No, but you talk to many of the teachers. Well, they complain every time, maybe because of my previous life. And I said, but you are in the school. Why don't you speak up? They say, no, madam. No, if you speak, this will happen to you. I said, since when? And I said, why are you speaking disrespectfully? Are you speaking in ways that are offensive? Or, what has happened?
Okay.
So it's not, a lot of teachers are not speaking up. But they should. That is why the PTA exists. It's a joint responsibility. Okay. The government has a role, the community has a role, parents have a role. And they must all come together, tolerate each other. Okay, they must listen to each other. You don't just say, this is what I want to do, I'm pushing it through regardless. When the children succeed, the parents benefit, the community benefits. the country benefits. So we must learn to listen. Yeah, sometimes it's not always that they say things in ways you like. So you can learn. That's why we also need the civic education people to help us to be a bit more polite in our submissions.
The way we put it across.
Yeah, and we shouldn't think that's something we should be very proud of, that we speak filthy language on the air. It doesn't help anybody. So we need to listen. We need to tolerate. We need to forbear. We need to be patient. Okay. Otherwise, you are pushing, the person is also pulling. Something will just give way. And in the end, everybody loses. And so then what have you achieved? You are now going to learn how to put the door back. All that time could have been used for something else. And more importantly, and worse rather, you get people taking entrenched positions. We're already more polarized than we need to be. We don't need to add another layer to this. And the worst place, education, this is the place we are raising the workforce for the future. And if already at that place they are learning that what I say is what should go, you look at the profile of the 21st century student. We want people to be able to work in groups, to respect each other's views. And what example are we showing? Who is respecting whose views? So is it just words again? Are they just words? Is it just a slogan? Or do we really, really believe that people ought to work in groups from different backgrounds and so on and so forth?
Somebody wants me to tell you that the national president of the PTA is now PRO of the government, so they definitely can't talk. Then let me end by this one from a branch chairman of the NDC in the UK. He says I should ask you when you are coming to the UK.
Tell them I don't have a plan now, but when they invite me and I agree with the reason why I should come, then I'll think about it.
Okay. So you have heard him, Francis, says you should get in touch with Prof. And perhaps we justify if Prof will fly all the way to the UK to come and meet you. But thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Most welcome. And let me thank everybody who has listened. Again, I want to thank all my sponsors, those who had faith in me, my campaign team. I want to thank everybody, especially the youth. They keep flocking, they keep coming. They keep asking for advice. I'm there to do what I can. I want to thank His Excellency JDM for that kind of faith he expressed. And I want to thank the party elders also for accepting me. All of us, whether they are foot soldiers or serial callers, whatever, they've all played a role in bringing us this far. I want to thank God Almighty. He's been so good to me. And I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
A Merry Christmas and Happy Year to you.